Good day, everybody. This is Yin Yang in California with Morsels of a Thought, number 1858. Allyson Chavez, The Prosperity Approach, page 62 is where we're reading from today. I like to try to bring us morsels of a thought of wisdom every day to try to inspire you to have a great day so that you have a chance to do something of virtue. Prosperity Approach, the simple formula to ultimate prosperity. Now, she says it's a simple formula, and I agree. It is simple when you have a higher power in your repertoire. If you have a higher power in your background, and you are in belief of the Great Spirit, um, or if you do a form of qigong, any form of energy work, you can do the things that she does here. And she said she's going to explain the law of cause and effect, aka the law of the harvest in this book. Excuse me while I yawn. I think I need to get some water, actually. Darn it. Phooey. Law of cause and effect, aka the law of the harvest. I am going to read to you from here. The reason we do this is other people give us wisdom, and this one is wise. Okay. For every cause, there is a definite effect, and for every effect, there is a definite cause. Your thoughts, behaviors, and actions create specific effects that manifest and create your life as you know it. Effects don't happen randomly. To drive this law home a bit easier, I substituted the word results for effects. So the law can read, for every cause, there is a definite result, and for every result, there is a definite cause. Results don't happen randomly. This law has a perfect illustration. If you plant carrot seeds, you will never, ever get a tulip. You will always get a carrot. Now, the size of the carrot, its vibrancy or nutritional value all depend on the quality of the soil in which you plant it, but you can be absolutely certain that planting a carrot seed will result in a carrot. How does this law play out in our everyday lives? Let's use a work project as an example. If you plant seeds of doubt, then every time you work on your project, you're going to be second guessing the decisions you're making. You'll have a hard time making decisions. You'll wonder if what you're doing is enough and hope to high heaven that everything will turn out all right. When showtime comes, you'll either overcompensate for feeling insecure by putting on a big bravado, or you'll shrink back and hide a bit. The results of that project will either be less than what you had hoped for, or if the project is really successful, you'll wonder if it's a fluke. I have personal experience planting seeds of doubt alongside my dreams. I think all of us do. I remember when I first started my coaching business, how much self-doubt filled me. I didn't really expect to sign clients, and every time I did, I wondered if it was a fluke. And this wasn't just after the first or second client I signed. I thought it was a fluke every single time. My results were never as high as I was aiming for. So there was always a bit of disappointment mingled in with the celebration. My results came directly from the cause, and the cause was my doubt around my ability to be successful signing clients. On the other hand, my brother Tim plants seeds of certainty. He has a successful business and is constantly thinking of ways to make it even more successful. He proudly showed me an all-terrain utility vehicle he had at his house one time. He paid $10,000 for it and said he was using it in a contest or a raffle for his customers. He had no idea if the investment would pay off, but he acted as if it would. He and his team worked diligently for 6 weeks, and by the end of the contest period, he had created an additional $400,000 in sales. Now that is a seed worth planting. Dennis R. Deaton, Deaton, author of the book on mind management, has said, most of what shows up in the world around you is an effect which has been caused by your thoughts. You are the cause. You are such a powerful cause. Most of the effects you experience are of your personal production. So you are such a personal cause. You are such a powerful cause that most of the effects you experience are of your personal production. She says, I know most people balk at that. What? I caused all the drama going on around me? I caused my teenager to be mouthy? I caused this financial turmoil? That can't be right. I'm working so hard, trying so hard. Yes, it's true. Are there other players in your life's game? Of course, but they wouldn't be behaving the way they are or stirring up the drama if you weren't an energetic match in the first place. The faster you come to accept that, the faster you'll claim how powerful you are, and the faster your life can change. Law of attention, aka law of focus. Whatever you focus and give your attention to will manifest. What you focus on expands. Energy flows where attention goes. Attention is the focus of your thoughts, words, and actions. If you want to stop flowing energy to things you don't want, shift your attention to things you do want. If all you're focused on is the disaster you're trying to avoid, where are you headed? Right toward the disaster. For several years, I was in charge of the girls aged 12 through 18 in my church's congregation. Every year, we'd go to girls' camp. I remember one year we drove down to southern Utah for Camp Ori, Orie, of the day activities was spent of the, oh, hold on, Ori. Oh, no. I remember one year we drove down to southern Utah for camp with a period. One, not Ori. One of the day activities was spent at the lake boating, playing in the water, and paddleboarding. I'd never ridden a paddleboard before, and I was excited to try it out. I noticed the tree out in the water, which I really didn't want to get tangled in. But as I looked at the tree, I continued to paddle right towards it. I hadn't mastered the art of steering the paddleboard yet, so what happened? Yep, I went straight into that tree. The girls got quite a kick out of watching me go straight into that tree, but I managed to keep a hold of the paddle, stay upright on the board, and finally get out of the branches. When you have your goal in front of you, but you see obstacles, when you have your goal in front of you, but see obstacles, do whatever you must to stay focused on the goal. So we are reading The Prosperity Approach, The Simple Formula to Ultimate Prosperity by Allyson Chavez, a best #1 seller. So #1 best sales. Let's see. Here, and I'm yawning because I just woke up. I'm sorry. Ay, ay, ay. When you have your goal in front of you but see obstacles, do whatever you must to stay focused on the goal. Give as little attention to the obstacles as possible. If you focus on the obstacle, that's all you'll get. Pay attention to where your thoughts generally lead you. I had a client who had leaned toward being dramatic. If things weren't going perfectly, her life was a catastrophe. As she learned about the law of attention, I encouraged her to use it to her advantage and only focus on what she wanted. She agreed, and a very short time later had the opportunity to put this law into practice. The universe is very accommodating with that, I found. Later on, she told me about the experience. She'd had a disgruntled client send her an email that was rude, nasty, and unjustified. Normally, she would have fired off her own reactive email, then called her husband, texted her girlfriends, and put a lot of attention on this negativity. But this time she remembered the law of attention. She didn't want to put any more energy into the situation that was already there, so she resisted texting or calling anyone and even shut down her computer and walked away instead of answering the email. She did admit it was really hard to do because all she wanted was to defend her own innocence, but she stayed committed and didn't tell anyone about the experience. Later that day, she answered the email politely and professionally, and the situation resolved itself easily and naturally, and she felt poised and calm. She felt poised and calm as she focused on what she did want instead of pumping energy into what she didn't want. Time to get some awareness. Write down the main thing you've given your attention to today. For myself, it was a dream. It was a very strange dream. Is that attention leading you one small step closer to your dream or the small step away from it? Write it below. Be honest and objective. This is for awareness purposes only. Now, when I said dream, I really meant night dream. And this is referring to whether or not it's getting me closer to my goal dreams. And I'm thinking, my attention to that does lead me a step closer because I'm taking the message I got from the dream, finally deciphering it, and saying, okay, then I need to account for this in my this part in my daily behaviors. So, okay, the law of non-resistance. The law of non-resistance. What you resist persists. Don't fight the obstacles or resist the situation you're in. When you resist it, you'll always have it with you. Don't work against things you don't want. Instead, work toward those things you do want. This means don't give your time, energy, and attention to people or things that oppose what you want. You're creating barriers to your prosperity coming in. Instead, be like the little stream. Let me explain. Water is so powerful, and yet it's the perfect non-resistant element. It can take the shape of any container it's in. It wears away the hardest rock. Nothing can withstand the force of a tsunami. But how does a big river begin? As a little stream high in the mountains, and it starts as a crooked little stream running into boulders and branches as it makes its way down the mountain. What does the water do when it comes up against these obstacles? It just winds its way around them. It doesn't call in the troops or try to build up enough force to push the boulder or the tree out of the way. It simply goes around. And yes, it winds back and forth and sometimes doubles back on itself, but is it still getting toward its goal? Of course. When most people come up against a boulder in their own lives, they immediately stop their progress, collect their forces, and put up a fight to get it out of the way. This sounds a lot like, I've got to figure this out, quote, end quote. This resistance they've set up causes friction, and friction causes irritation and inflammation. Friction is opposition and resistance. When I first saw my business going downhill, you can bet I resisted that. I did everything I could think of to try to drum up more clients and more sales. I hired mentors, took more trainings, all in a desperate attempt to keep the business afloat. It wasn't wrong of me to hire mentors or increase my training. That's part of what brings high levels of success. But the energy I was in was a fighting energy. My prayers were filled with pleading to take this away and save me. I didn't see until after I stopped resisting that everything was happening to help me get back on my purpose so I could teach what I was sent here to teach. The prosperity approach didn't come to me until after I quit fighting and resisting. The castle I had built needed to be dismantled to make room for the empire that would come in its place. Going through life, arguing, fighting, resenting, and judging puts more obstacles in your path. You get so preoccupied fighting these obstacles that you lose sight of your real objective. So don't make a big deal out of the obstacle. Keep your eye on the prize and persevere. Persevere. You might have to wind around and around those obstacles, but you will ultimately win. Let go of the temptation to worry, complain, doubt yourself, be swallowed by fear, or get angry and frustrated. Those are boulders that will stop you every time. What you resist persists. List some things that cause friction or resistance for your goal. Example, worrying, arguing, judging. Okay, and then they have spaces for 5 items. Okay. Worrying, arguing, judging, interrupting, uh, avoiding. So I've got 5. I have 5 after the 3. Law of flow. Oh, so we are reading the prosperity approach. The the simple formula to ultimate prosperity by Allyson Chavez. It's the #1 bestseller. Okay, here is the law of flow. Law of flow. I never understood this, so I'm going to understand it now. Everything is always moving and changing, flowing in and out of life. To allow new things to come in, you must let go of the old. Here is a physics lesson explained so a 5-year-old can understand. When something is full, there is no room for anything else to come in. If you want new experiences with prosperity, you must let go of old stories, emotions, resentments, and even physical items to allow the new to come in. When you hang on to money, clothes, jewelry, and even old emotions, there is no room for anything new to come in. Holding on to old memories and emotions that don't serve you blocks new, refreshing things from flowing in. As soon as you throw those things away, the law of flow ensures something else will come in to take its place. It's important to note that you get to choose whether to replace those emotions with the same emotions or shift your thinking to attract something better. If you have the same thoughts and beliefs, you'll stay in the same inner frequency or vibration and the same conditions will return. See that? For 30 years, I held on to massive amounts of grief at losing my mom. Although I didn't cry every day, anytime one of my aunts would talk about her or my brothers would mention her, my throat would close up and my eyes would fill with tears. I was continually surprised at this. Why was I so emotional about something that happened so far in the past? Though we hadn't been allowed to mourn losing her, uh, in my adult life, I'd done immense amounts of healing around losing a loved one. Though I knew part of me would always grieve, I thought I'd moved most out of it. Excuse me. I'd moved most of it out. It wasn't until I was working with another energy practitioner that I realized what was going on. I was releasing grief, but then I would immediately call it back with my thoughts and emotions. My body was filled with grief. It wasn't until after I chose to let that grief go and replace it with feelings of hope and peace that those new emotions could actually stay with me. This is how I knew most of the grief had been released. I would cry in a very deep way, and it didn't feel like my heart was breaking again. Anytime I'd cried in my life, no matter what I was crying about, it felt like my heart was seizing. But now I can cry and feel deep emotions, and my heart feels strong and whole. I had no idea what that felt like until then. The example I gave above is extreme. The changes don't have to be like the changes don't have to be big like the one I described. Even if the change is small, it's enough. Something different has to come in. Don't be really concerned with the size of the change, but the quality of the change. Another exercise. Think about one situation, emotional or physical, that is not flowing well. What is one thing you can do to activate the law of flow? Write it below. Vacuum law of prosperity. Nature abhors a vacuum. When empty space is created, nature always moves to fill it in. Hmm. Nature always moves in to fill it. Vacuum law of prosperity. The law of prosperity is what I call the, quote, physical counterpart, end quote, to the law of flow. This is a law you can utilize immediately and see how it works. Do you have a closet or junk drawer? Clean it out. You'll feel the shift immediately, both inside you and inside your physical environment. Don't you take a big sigh of relief and look around in satisfaction when the house is all clean? Doesn't it feel so good? When my mind feels cluttered, I look around my physical environment. Invariably, it's cluttered as well. Marianne Williamson said, quote, "A cluttered desk is the sign of a distressed mind," end quote. Once I clean up my desk and my office, the ideas start flowing again. This also works for money. I love the story Bob Proctor tells about a time when he visited his aunt. She complained about the ugly drapes that hung in her living room, exclaiming how embarrassed she was, but couldn't afford new ones. Bob finally told her, "Auntie, you love those drapes. New drapes can't come in until you get rid of those. There's no space for them." She decided to test his theory. The next time he saw her, new drapes hung proudly in her living room, and her living room was empty of furniture. His aunt used the law of prosperity to discard her old drapes so there would be physical room for new ones. When she saw that the first experiment worked, she got rid of her living room furniture to make room for new furniture to take its place. Using the law of prosperity by physically getting rid of things that you no longer use, by donating them or throwing them away, shows active faith. You don't know how or when that space will be filled, but I guarantee you it will be filled. Why do you think people spring clean their closets every year? One of my clients, Courtney, used the law of prosperity when she and her husband wanted to adopt a baby. After they became certified to adopt, they began to physically prepare for a baby. They cleaned out the spare bedroom and painted it the color they wanted for the nursery, set up the furniture, and got everything ready, knowing full well that the adoption process could take years. Regardless of that, they made room without desperation or pleading or demanding the time frame, sex of the child, or even if one would come. But they spoke about having a child, made physical room for a baby in their family, and within 5 months, they adopted. There's a question for you. Where can you physically create space in your life for something better to come in and fill it? Okay, so next time we start will be when we are reading laws to use when it seems like nothing is working. Okay? Old Kinderheck.